Good morning and welcome to the Capital Gang. I am Oscar Semoyamsoke, and as Moses would say of a morning program, we have a bevy of topics for you. I have a bit of a cough, bit of a cold, and as Mr. Katana will say, some people are dying of coughs and colds. Mr. Katana, I did not know you are a doctor. I don't know how you have surmised that illness.
Probably a native doctor.
A native doctor. Then in the studio, I have Mr. I should say good morning and welcome to Gang, Benjamin Katana.
Good morning, Oscar.
Yes.
It's always a pleasure to be part of the gang.
Yes, NUP Maneman.
Yes, treasurer.
Most welcome. Then I have Mr. Harold Kaija. Mr. Harold Kaija, you're most welcome to Gang.
I'm happy to be here at the Gang.
Yes.
To join the team, and I'm next to this woman from the mountains.
The woman,
you used to have Ken Lucham is the man, then we eventually go to the woman.
We eventually got the woman.
The woman.
Sounds like Trump saying the woman from Michigan.
from the mountain.
From mountain.
From Mount Elgon.
Welcome to Capital Gang, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto Mutende.
Thank you, Oscar, and good morning to our listeners and our viewers. You've made me sit next to Kaija. I don't know how the show will go, but greetings from Mbale City. And it is circumcision season, so Imbalu kadodimu kinabula ichale don't have a case.
How is it going with the rains and so on? Are people safe in Bali?
Yeah, there's been an ongoing campaign about our people who live in the vulnerable areas, the mountain areas like in Bududa, up in Wanale, then in Hulambuli, and I've seen officials from Ministry, Office of the Prime Minister, trying to make sure that those who have stubbornly stayed there can come down and to deal with the issues of culture, because many of them had gone back for the cultural season because they believe that they have to get circumcised from the traditional sites, but they've been told that this is not the best time to go there because it's raining. Maybe they can go back for that during the dry season in December, but for now it's very risky to remain in those sites up in the mountain, so they should come down. But the season for circumcision was launched on the 3rd of August, and all the clans now have their own calendar on how they are having their young men getting into the season. Even my own family, we've already had our day, and the young people have become men and strong citizens of the community. Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me. Then I also have Mr. Ivan Bamoyana, an Earth observation researcher. You're most welcome to Gang, Mr. Ivan Bamoyana of Makiri.
Yes, one of the research methods is observation.
So am I safe? Am I to be observed?
Thank you, listeners. This is Ivan Bamoyana from Makere University, Department of Geomatics and Land Management, and I'm an Earth observation researcher.
Department of
Geomatics and Land Management.
Then what does SEDAT mean?
SEDAT is College of Engineering, Design, Art and Technology.
Fantastic. So what do you study to become an Earth observation researcher?
We study a very simple mathematics called geomatics. It's basically the art and science of measuring things on the Earth's surface. And the Earth's surface has part of space, so the routes for the airplanes on ground, including your land, and underground as well.
Fantastic. So we needed you at Kiteezi so that Kiteezi doesn't happen. I wonder what happened.
Oh yes, we were there, but nature is nature. The environment is the environment. Like I say, one unique thing about the environment is it cannot be neglected. It forces itself on the agenda. You can't deploy against it. You can't use guns against it. If it says there's going to be a landslide, then you do the process of taking care of it. If you don't, it will march to Parliament to be on your agenda. Yeah, so and
for a researcher, you seem fatalistic. So this was bound to happen. Only God could have stopped it.
Not really. We would have done something about it.
Okay.
We would have stopped using the landfill and flattened it a bit. But yes, it did happen. And so now we are responding.
So going a little bit backwards, what would you say happened?
Right now, it's a party of events, just like the way a child fails at school, and then they say, he wakes up late, he's stubborn. So here it's a party of events, and we are investigating that. Slopes may have failed. The piling may have been really high. I think now that you're close to me, you'll get to see the live pictures from there. So the heights may have been really high. The compaction factor has not been looked at. All those things determine that the landfill was actually full, and that's why I think KCCA in 2018 procured Dundu with the idea that we need to move and get away from here. Yes.
So were there signs that this could collapse? There've been some letters written by the director, Mr. Okello, who was in charge. Is it Dr. Okello?
Yes.
Who's kind of in charge? Yes. So the signs were there?
Yes. I think there's something people have seen on social media. I think a research clip from our students in civil engineering who assessed slope analysis and who did a slope analysis and found that the place was not really stable and a certain side, would collapse. There has been subsequent research saying this can go down, okay? And so the landfill has given us time to deal with it. And so now we can look into what we would have done different. And now that the disaster is here, so what do we do? First of all, we need to understand what's the magnitude we are dealing with. But I think for most people, they think something collapsed and they are not really aware of the magnitude of what we are dealing with. But now the concentration is on the magnitude of what we are dealing with. Yes.
Who's looking up the magnitude of what we're dealing with?
I think there are a lot of people on ground. Government is on ground. I know that the National Building Review Board is on ground, KCCA is on ground, police is on ground, IG is on ground. So there are people, but then there's also what us, the independent researchers, do, like on behalf of your university for scholar purposes, to actually be able to put out the actual measurements. Okay, so for example, if they tell you that the landfill was about 39 acres, 35 is the solid component and collapsed. So when you think it has collapsed, you think something has fallen. But this is something that has collapsed and covered 22 acres. So when we talk about covering 22 acres, you begin to realize what we are dealing with. That's not small. If we tell you that it has covered 65 houses, then you know that those houses must have had people. When we tell you that the house that actually caught our interest was the house in Chitetika. There's a valley in between Kiteezi and Chitetika. So that house was 100 meters away from the lowest point of that valley, and it was a storage
from the
house
lowest point
of that valley, and it was 100 meters away and 10 meters on the rise. But the rubbish came down the valley, climbed a hill 10 meters upwards for 100 meters. So we begin to say this was force. And then when you measure it, for example, along its longest stretch, you're going to find that the rubbish moved within a distance of 800 meters. 800 meters, even your eyesight is beginning to get compromised on how much you can see. So that's how big it is.
That's 2 football fields.
No, 22 football fields.
22 football fields.
Yes, because it covered 22 acres.
Right.
Yeah.
And in what time?
In what time?
Mr. Kaija is trying to measure it with his hand. I don't think he will succeed.
No, for us over the numbers,
Yes.
about 8.
Yeah, so most people have this basic situation that an acre is a football field. Yeah, and so usually I tell them you're looking at around 22 of them. So it happened at 8:15 in the morning. 8:15 in the morning, and for us it is the stories out of there that have kept getting our attention and driving our research. I can give you one example why I'm particular with the time that it's 7:15.
7:15 or 8:15?
It's 7:15. There's a pastor. He had gone to overnight prayers, and then he came back, and his family was not there. All he could see was rubbish. I had an opportunity to reach such area, and this pastor, I can tell you that the Uganda police, the UPDF, are doing a very good job. They're actually the people manning the excavators. And so this man could no longer tell where particularly his house was. But he says, I've not gotten my wife and children. They are still there. So we that's what we do at Observation Science. So we decide, let's observe, let's go and look for where this particular house was. The gentlemen of the force, UPDF and police, had actually dug around that area 7 meters down, but they could still not reach the house. So they had dug a big area, so we reached there, and actually I located the house. Like, this is where we need to dig to find this person's family. So the digging commenced, and I can tell you I was very impressed with the synchronization of how they try to look up someone. They will put spotters on the tracks, just they don't miss the body. Now, this is what you need to understand about solid waste. It is very hot temperature-wise when they dig it up, and it has methane gas coming out of it. So everyone is shocked all the time, like they're trying to cover up, and then they realize they need the aeration. And those men are braving all that condition, and they're looking out for people. And so you don't expect a decent body to come out by now because of the temperatures with that. And so what basically happens is they dug, we could see some bricks. They dug, we reached ground, we went 7 meters further down. So we are talking a person who was, the house which was covered by around 7 meters, then we go like another 7 meters, and it was very sad we could not find the people. But the effort was really satisfying. But then the gentleman is still stuck, he can't find the people. So it's really those stories that make us move in and now locate where the actual people may be. Yes.
I received a report from KCCA this morning, Kiteezi situation report, 23rd August 2024, it was yesterday. 35 bodies came from the rubble, 18 male, 17 female, 14 survivors, and then they have 374 displaced persons in a tent. And KCCA has set up emergency medical services on site. 14 survivors means what?
Those who they managed to get out quickly.
Right.
What you realize is that some houses were not completely covered, so the immediate rescue managed to get out some people. Yes.
And 14 seems very few, rather few.
I think the height that covered the people. When you get a break, I'll show you some of those pictures that are coming out of there. The height of the rubbish that covered the people could not enable immediate response to dig them out. We are talking about 65 houses.
Some people had speculated that it was 90 houses. How did you work out that it's 65 houses?
Okay, so what we do, we get the most recent image before that disaster, and then we get an image post-disaster, and then we compare the two. So with this math, there's no augmentation.
Yeah. It is what it is.
It is what it is. But I know that there's a difference between houses and homesteads or households. So the number
the houses are 65. Maybe 6 or 7 people might have been living in one house. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
Families. Yes.
So families living in the one house.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's talking about.
More
If I
than
got
one
it
family
right.
living in one house.
Yes, so you can have the way you can have a boys' quarter, and then you have, and then you also have a situation where there were tenants on a block. Yeah, and then you also have what we call the Kawenjas. The English word is a bit rough. Scavengers. Those people who dig out that rubbish, do dig out things to recycle.
Yeah.
Those are very hard to account.
Are they part of 374 displaced persons, or those are the ones whose houses
Those don't live there. They just come to
Scavenge. Yeah.
And are there some of those lost? Are there any of
The
those?
word is scavengers. We can stick to what is known.
And the question is, are they Ivan? Are there any who are unaccounted for of those Kawenjas?
Yes, actually their number is not known because they are the majority and they may not be known. What you have to realize is there are people who have left their villages. People there earn between 10,000 to 25,000 a day. So there are people who have left their homes and they have not declared where they are. They are in the city trying to make it. And there's no one to claim that this person is missing. Some of them don't even have a permanent home they stay. They use the night to be on top of those trucks and then go and look for rubbish out to recycle. So we cannot say people are completely eliminated. Actually, if you go there, though you need permissions, you're going to discover that the stench of a human being, of human beings, is beginning to catch up with the area.
Very sad. So, but is there some research going on to find out how many of those could have disappeared?
I know there are a number of efforts, but the idea was report missing people if you're missing someone. But we cannot eliminate the idea that there are people there who no one is accounting for.
Thank you. That's Ivan Bamoyana, a scholar. He's an Earth observation researcher at Mackay University. Bwana Kaija, I'm pleased you are tucking into mandazi and tea. Here we are very safe. You don't need to bring your chapati in the pocket.
Lydia did. She came with her chapati.
I beg your pardon. So, Benjamin Katana, that area is an NUP area. What reports do you have?
Of course, it's very unfortunate that we are dealing with a tragedy of such magnitude that we are talking about very many people dead under the rubble of rubbish. And so far what I have gathered is that most of the people, first of all, is that it's it's like a landing site. He has mentioned the Kawenjas, people who have come from different places to come and make a living from dealing with the waste and things of that nature. That most of the people so far, the bodies that have been recovered, they are people that came from distant places. And indeed they have been, I was speaking to one of the leaders in the area. He says nobody has been buried in that area. Most of them are people that came from a different place, which also speaks to what he was talking about, that we may not even be able to establish how many people were there at the time, because many came from different places to go. In addition to those who live there, there are those who had just come to work. But of course, the bigger question is about waste management, the conversation about waste management. Because while the researcher, Mr. Bamayan, has talked about nature responding, but nature also responds to activities. And we have seen in black and white the warnings from the research that was published by Makerere University, from the warnings that were issued by the director at KCCA, that this was a disaster in waiting. There are problems that are local in terms of leadership of KCCA. But waste management, the debate about waste management is now a global debate. But unfortunately in Uganda, it's not a conversation that is being given a lot of attention. Because if we are to talk about waste management, then it even starts at household level. And it becomes very easy when there is separation. You know, the biodegradable waste is separated from the non-biodegradable. Because if, for example, the bottles and the plastics and the rest were somewhere else, the Kawenjas maybe that they would have not been at the landfill. They would have been where they can find those non-biodegradable, yes. And so that conversation requires leadership. The leaders need to start a conversation and don't leave it to the academicians and the technocrats in the boardrooms to talk about what can be done, because it's a global problem of waste management. Number two, at the national level, we have been grappling with issues like Kavera, the plastic, the non-reusable plastics. There have been attempts to make the law. In fact, there are even statutory, and Abdu here and his team at Parliament have done a good job regarding that aspect. But in terms of implementation, it has remained a problem. The other aspect is to do with the management of affairs at KCCA and what they prioritize. Because these are warnings. I saw that what they required, because that landfill had gone past its capacity, maybe over 10 years ago, what they required to operationalize the one in Dund was about 6 billion. I have seen them conduct activities that take more than 6 billion. It was a matter of making it a priority. I'm also told that there is land they acquired in Obosiro, which they acquired and it was vacant. But because of some unseriousness, some people came and occupied it. Now they can't use it because there is a legal battle with the people who came subsequent to the purchase of the land. So the prioritization, but also it speaks to negligence by the authorities at KCCA. But that also has a relationship with the power dynamics in the country, that the leaders don't feel accountable. Anything goes. There will be a conversation about it. After a week, there will be something new. Nobody will be held accountable. So that's why people find the comfort not to do what they are supposed to do, because they know after all, it will not attract any punitive action. But also to realize that these modern challenges, because with urbanization, with growth in numbers of people that live around the cities, questions to do with things like waste are questions that must be handled. They cannot be wished away. So even the leadership, when they are appointing people to run these offices, they should have this in mind, that if I'm appointing Kaija to be executive director of KCCA, what is his expertise? What is his history of excellence in dealing with whatever they have been dealing? Is there a competitive process through which the executive director, because KCCA would put up, say, an advert and say we are looking with someone with experience and expertise in these areas, and then there's a competitive process and a person with a record of excellence emerges. But because the appointing authority is interested in other things, he just picks anybody. They say, oh, the person has a degree, has a master's degree.
He's a friend?
Yeah, he's a friend, he's a cadre. Then the person is appointed. And some of these things, they are not given a lot of attention, because even the person's orientation is not in that direction. The other aspect, of course, is when you look at, for example, the management of the city, you look at the ministers that are appointed, because the idea when we are moving from the old of having KCC with the mayor running the show to the creation of city authority with the management led by the executive director and her team or his team, and then ministers representing the central government. The idea was that we want to streamline management of the city because the city is the face of the country and things of that nature. But when you look at our friends that are running the city, and I don't like discussing individuals, but you'll forgive me. When you look at the ministers for Kampala City, Hajat Minsa and Chofa Togabi, I don't know what experience they have in management or in providing strategic leadership of a strategic institution as KCCA is. So in my view, this tragedy that happened is a product of questions of governance and political mismanagement of the country, where excellence and merit and the integrity of the people and service to the people is not treated as a priority, but politics is given a priority over service. And of course the feeling that the leadership is not accountable to the people, that breeds impunity and negligence, because at the end of the day the people running the city affairs know that their appointment or promotion has got nothing to do with excellence. In any case, they were not appointed on the basis of that. So I think we need to see action being taken. As I wrap up, action being taken against those who slept on the job. Of course, there are those against whom action may not be taken, because like I have mentioned, the problems relate not just to the management of KCCA, but also management of the country, including the head of state. But for those that are not covered by immunity under the law, like the executive director, even if there is no legal action taken for negligence, and I know that there are movements in that direction, there should be action taken politically. We should see heads rolling at KCCA, because we cannot lose lives largely on account of negligence, and business continues as usual.
Okay. Well, I had invited the Lord Mayor, who wasn't able to come, and he sent the deputy, Ms. Nyanjura, who also is suffering from what you described earlier. She couldn't come.
From my expertise as a native doctor.
Yes.
not as a medical doctor.
No. But it says there was a meeting chaired by the first Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Kadaga, on 21st August. And decisions were made. One, all garbage trucks which have been depositing garbage in Kiteezi rechanneled to Katikolo in Mukono district and Menvu in Busukuma, Nansana municipality. Ministry of Works shall commence works on those roads to access Katikolo and Menvu, and a resettlement plan for displaced residents of Kiteezi has been commissioned to be prepared by KCC in conjunction with the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development to relocate from the 200-meter buffer zone at Kiteezi landfill to alternative areas. And we are cautioned to be extra careful. So, Mr. Kaija, your comments on what's happening and what measures are going forward.
Well, thank you, Oscar, for giving me an opportunity. And then giving us an expert
with worrying information.
This very issue.
We also have Honorable Katuntu, who I didn't introduce. He's in the studio.
I want to.
He has a stern face, thinking about Kiteezi. And we have someone from Red Cross, the PRO of Red Cross, Irene Nakasita. Most welcome.
I want to send my condolences to the families of the people who lost their loved ones. And I feel for those who will never know that their loved ones died in that tragedy. There are many. In this country, people move from all over the country to come and try out their luck in Kampala. others with the knowledge of their relatives, and others with no knowledge of their relatives. Most especially people at the base, who people call Umuntu wa wansi, for me I call the common man. Most of these Kawenjas, I first interacted with a Kawenja. I was getting out of my home and I found him at the gate, and then they told me, this guy sleeps here. So I went to him and I asked him, you guy, what do you do? He said, I am a Kawenja. So I said, what do the Kawenjas do? Eh? So, I collect these plastic bottles and then sell them. Where do you stay? I have no home. Where do you come from? Mitiana. So I interrogated. I thought he didn't know Mitiana. We started discussing Kasanda, the gold crisis, and the guy was spot on. Then I read that's where he comes from.
Was this random survey before the before the crisis?
Yes. Do you have a phone? He doesn't have a phone. So it means that even his relatives do not know what actually this guy is doing. A week before this tragedy, we are driving to Nagarama to check on our colleagues that were abducted by Mr. Museveni from Kenya, and we are put there now charged with terrorism. So I was with Honorable Afro Gotu. We looked at that hill, we called it a hill. Said, I think next time we need to name this hill. Yes, we called it a hill that with no name. So I was like, I looked at it at the economic line of thinking. So there is a lot of opportunity in this West that nobody seems to look at and to care. But you see, when you have a regime of dealers, for the last 40 years, people do not succeed in this country because they hard work. They're hardworking, or they are creative, or they have enough qualifications. You only need to have a few connections, know who so and so, have an expert in writing proposals, and you'll make money. But in serious countries, if you went to just nearby Ethiopia, they are making a lot of money from this West. If Ethiopia, I thought he was going to go that line. People who have looked at this West, they tell you, the West in Kiteezi can give you power that can take care of Wakiso and Ruwero, and you're sorted. But you see, even the energy sector, there are those who take it as a deal. It is theirs, nobody must benefit. I visited one of our leaders in Ruwero. She was using biogas from cow dung. So I was asking her, why don't you use it for lighting? Say, the first thing they told me, you must not put on bulbs. So you must still keep using umeme. When you go, because I said now in the cattle corridors, you wouldn't need umeme. You would actually need to use the waste of cow dung. But you see, Ugandans at the base are very creative. Today, you'll never see any waste of pills in the markets. They peel them. Those 10 grays, they come and buy them. When they buy them at their farm, urine is a waste that is used in farms. Cow dung is used as manure. So everything that is about the cow is useful. But then you have this waste, which would give you manure in a country where you have a crisis of manure and fake manure. Nobody seems to see there's manure. The Kawenja, you wouldn't have these young boys being Kawenjas. It would be a design. And then you would even teach Ugandans, how do you manage your waste, as you said, from home? If you went in Europe, you see people having a basket. This is for waste that can decompose, and this is waste that cannot decompose. It is separated. But here where they put glasses, you put plastic, you put papers, you put those. So at the end of the day, we say it is just waste.
We put to be cut out.
But then now I remember, I think I think a few like a month ago, you were hosting the ED of Kampala, and you were asking her about the strategic plan of KCCA, and they don't have it.
They have.
No, she was on this program, and I was listening. I think my senior leader was on that very program. Oh, it's even who reminded, he said, they don't have it. So now, for them, they are like the Juakaris. A Juakari is always a crisis manager. One crisis with this, now eventually now we are following this. Tomorrow another one will come of cholera. We shall now be following cholera. Not knowing the cholera comes from this very, this very crisis. So there is a serious problem in this country. But you see, one time I was going to visit a patient. One of our colleagues was a lawyer. He eventually died that very day. As I was getting in, I found Dr. Olive Komsinje getting out. So I asked Doctor, how is the patient? She told me, the patient is suffering from a situation of multi-organ failure. I didn't ask. I thought I knew that English. Then I went, the machines were breaking. In about 3 minutes, the guy was dead. So in the evening, I was asking, Doctor, what did you mean? He said, the lungs have stopped. This has stopped. The heart has stopped. So the person is actually clinically dead. So we are living in a country that nothing works. The other somebody was saying the only thing that works in this country is Joshua Kiptigei. Now I have heard the ministers asking him, please don't retire from the track competitions because they had want to. Yes, he was saying he's retiring to go to marathon. They said it's the only thing that works. The day that guy was starting to run when he gave us gold, the commentator said, this guy comes from a very beautiful country. To me, that was a very big statement, a very beautiful country, which would be a country of opportunity. Because this is a man-made crisis that comes from employing people or deploying people, not because they are competent. Achinua Achebe said, the problem with Nigeria is that there is no office in this country where we have our best. When I heard him speak, I thought he would be working in some ministry, advising. But then you would find those that he salutes for are wannabes. So because you're son of so-and-so, you're brother of so-and-so, you are so-and-so, you support so-and-so. You saw now the other day, you saw the crisis that happened where you have an ambassador who puts a casino in an embassy. That's how this country works. If you went to KCCA, you look for people who are in charge of this, and you find, I'm a social scientist. You'll even find a lawyer because in this town, when things fail to make ends, you'll always grab on any kind of opportunity. So this is where we are. We can only get out of this kind of situation when we decide to look at Uganda as a project, not look as individuals with selfish motive. Thank you.
That's Mr. Kaija with what sounded like a rant. At least you've gotten it out of your system. And it is true, Ivan Bamwena is being praised. One listener said, the most modest expert I have ever had. Lydia, Kiteezi, the own ways forward, KCCA has forwarded what I read out. Were these long overdue?
You know, Kiteezi is a tough story. But let me, like we did last Saturday, continue to pay tribute to the lives lost, but also with the families that have lost relatives. Others don't even know, have not yet recovered their relatives. They are still waiting. And I heard that in the course of the week, the exercise of exhuming the dead stopped because I think there was either rain or they were stopping some water flowing from Chitetika, and they had first of all work out the management of it. Otherwise, the trucks were not working. But that has a big toll to the relatives who are waiting for their loved ones to put them to rest. It's very difficult to conclude the mourning session of life before you bury. You want to see the dead and put them to rest so that there is a sign of a grave somewhere. And as long as they have not recovered their dead, they remain in that state. And you can imagine in the African culture, when you hear someone has died, you begin a vigil, a funeral. So when will that vigil close? Yeah,
and who's looking after them?
Yeah, and then there are issues of logistics, and so for those families, it's actually very tough. Because I had the police spokesperson saying they had put a stop or some time, then maybe they will resume. But there must be a closure. But even for those families whose bodies will not have been recovered like forever now, how are they going to conclude the mourning without a grave, without a formal funeral? So those are some of the issues that are very difficult to stand with or to even discuss. The management of waste is very important, because even without Kiteezi, it should have come yesterday, because there are issues of climate change. They are part of the planning of the country. We have a whole Ministry of Environment. There are issues of waste management, and also livelihood, the Ministry of Health. These are issues of health. How do people settle near garbage? Even without Kiteezi happening, there are issues of cholera. There are issues of diseases that come out of living in an unacceptable environment. So I don't understand. Now we are here thanking Red Cross. You know, we are so vulnerable that when we have such problems, like where I come from in Mbale, Bududa, people stay there. Then when mudslides come, they are buried. Then people come, then we begin thanking rescuers and people like Red Cross to bring you some blanket here, some posho, and we are such a vulnerable community and victims. And there's a chance to really preempt. Like the warning, there's so many early warnings that came before Kiteezi. We are embarrassed. It's a shame. Maybe we should have begun the media campaign when we heard about the early warning. Maybe. So that there is name and shame to say there is a warning about Kiteezi and KCCA, why are you quiet? It's very painful to see people who should have saved lives now taking religious leaders to pray for the Kiteezi. There was a service there. They've taken a catering. It's a mockery. You take a catering service to serve food. What about serving food? Well, and all this? I mean, it's until leading upside down things. I mean, I can't understand this. I actually develop goose pimples when I see some of the actions. People are supposed to have preempted a disaster. They come and become so good and even spend more when the disaster has happened. Huh? Can you imagine those families if they had been given 5 million shillings before they died? I don't know whether I'm making sense. But now the money appears, the food appears, the services appear after. Because Katuntu, a nice dua or service should have happened so that people can move before they die. So Oscar, when we come here and then we all lament and sound very remorseful or feeling with the people, it's painful because these are really avoidable. I listened to the Lord Mayor and other people in the leadership of KCCA zeroing the whole problem of Kiteezi to lack of money. If we brought the budget of KCCA here every financial year, including the revenue collection they make locally from the private managers of the state, because they also collect revenue, URA collects revenue, they also have a budget, and looked at their priorities, they should all have gone home because their priorities do not speak to the needs of the people. That one I can say without any contradiction. But because their priorities are also upside down, no wonder they can afford catering service at a funeral, but they could not afford the same money service provider to save a life. So I think I had someone saying, it is cadres that are deployed. Please, I want to speak here on this capital gang that we have Ugandans, whether you call us cadres or not, who can do a good job in these offices. It's just because no, not overlook us. It's just because maybe the opportunities are not competitive enough, because Uganda whether you are NRM, whether you are FDC, whether you are no planning, we have good Ugandans out there, but they have not been having a good opportunity. And they don't have to be cadres. Sometimes the considerations is not even cadres. There are other considerations. It's not even competence, because if it is a competence, there's a reason why some of us will not be heading big corporations of the country. I mean, if you want me to show you my CV, are you questioning my cadreship?
I don't.
So really, the issue is it's not about having cadres. It's about commitment and being accountable. Because this is an aspect of being care. Because I even think to be a leader in KCC, even if you didn't go to school, if you cared and you had empathy, you know, if you don't have empathy as a leader, you are empty.
Okay.
You are empty. You have no business in positions of leader. You don't have to have gone to school. But if you care about people and you are empathetic to people, you can deliver a good job even without qualifications, even without being a cadre. So that's my contribution, and I think it's a shame, and we should do better, and we should not work for cameras. Let people get down to work and know that life matters, and we should learn to deliver and be accountable to life.
Abdul. Pick it up from there.
About cadres?
No.
I don't have an opinion
about Kiteezi, landfill collapse.
Okay. Oscar, maybe we need to take this conversation a little bit higher. Uganda is, by law, a one planning area. We have a ministry, fiscal planning. We have a ministry called Lands, Housing, and Urban Development. Let us split it. When we talk about urban development, we are talking about all the cities now. We are talking about municipalities. We are talking about town councils and trading centers. I want my brother here, who has been properly described by one of our listeners, to do some research and see what we are doing about planning for urban areas. Look at that ministry of lands, housing, and urban development, and tell me whether there is any urban development strategy or plan in place. Look at the resources that have been allocated for that particular ministry. You'll find that actually they are only given money for wages, meaning they wake up every day, they are supposed to be planning for this country, but they're just seated on their desks. And if you don't have a national planning strategy for urban areas, for heaven's sake, Kiteezi is just one other thing going to happen. All urban areas in the whole world, cities, are grappling with issues of infrastructure, housing, food, water, sewage. You tell me, who is planning? Let us look at the figures of Kampala. In 2014, we were 1.6 million people. 2019, around 1.9. 2020, around 2 million. 2024, we are around 4 million people. Who is planning in terms, for example, of water we are going to consume? In terms of the sewage, which we are producing and has to be disposed of, the infrastructure. Not only Kampala, go to Jinja, go to Masaka, go to Mbarara, because the focus is now on Kampala and accident has happened. Look at the leadership in charge of urban planning in this country. And you don't have to be defensive, Lydia, because to me, your argument was the same Kaija was making, only that maybe use the word cadres, but you are saying there are many people who do not qualify but are holding these positions.
To be fair, it was Katana who said it.
Okay, but I use the cadre. For me, I use the. I did not use the, but I explained that.
All of them are talking about it, but they are making the same point that we are not deploying our best to do the job. And we can lament here. We hope when we come here every Saturday, there is somebody out listening, say, look, things should be done better and differently. Let us look at the infrastructure. The infrastructure of Kampala as it was 10 years ago, it is today. The population has doubled. What do you expect? And there are basics which we should be handling. For example, sorting out this solid waste.
Yes.
Very, very basics, Oscar. But you put plastics, diapers, sanitary something, you had all these man you just put together, and then it's just a little bit disgusting. Having said that, to me, everything starts, they say the buck starts and ends with the politics of the country, yes. But there are people who call themselves experts. There are people who call themselves technocrats, and actually they are paid to be doing that. Oscar, you tell me, when have we ever had a discussion, or the city has ever had a discussion about solid waste management? Politicking, day in, day out. Look at what goes on at Kampala Capital City Authority. Every day they are talking about politics. Every day the fights you are having is about politics. Even when there is a crisis like this, it will end up politicking. Actually, talking about politics is okay, but you end up politicking, which is certainly different from talking about politics. So if we don't really go back to the basics, to the table, and see how to manage this country, and sometimes you wonder. There's a friend of mine who was called Kajimo. He once stood for mayorship of Entebbe. I don't know whether you remember him. He had proposed that we go back we should hand over this country to the colonials. Yeah. You remember that story? And he was ridiculed. But let me tell you one thing, Oscar. You grew up in Kasese. Kasese then.
Kilembe.
Kilembe. Just look at how organized Kasese was. Just go in any up-country's town, whether Tororo, Mbale, Aru, Agulu, Lira, including places like Moroto.
Yes.
There is a housing estate, what they used to call senior quarters, junior quarters. There is a public boma. There are places for schools. Every town, there is a golf course. Just imagine, all these up-country towns, they have golf courses. Go to Masaka golf course.
Ginger.
Do you know? It has been parceled out. People are building, and but this was supposed to be a recreational facility, knowing very well that you are going to have people in these areas who should be playing football, playing golf, and so on. It has happened before, so we are not reinventing the wheel. It has been here before. Look at every district. We have too many mushrooming districts now. Trading centers being called municipalities and so on. No planning at all. Nothing. Even, let's now come to metropolitan Kampala. I live in Seguku.
You first pause there. We stop for a quick break and maybe give you some water to calm down, and we continue the discussion. Welcome back from the break. I am Oscar Semwe-Amsoke, and we're still discussing the sad events of Kiteezi landfill collapse. Abdu, you were concluding your submission.
I was concluding that,
what can happen.
Yeah, it's all about planning and urban development and housing. I said Seguku, as I was saying, but just look at the sort of housing in where I stay. There is one of, I don't know how many billions of shillings. There is a one of 100,000. We all stay in the same place. No, planning. Say, look at those people who have capacity to have this sort of housing can put up their dwelling places, this and so on, like it happens in all other developed cities. Here today, just imagine, do we have this? I don't know, that department in KCCA that approves, building plans and so on. What do they take into consideration when they are approving housing building plans?
Like the ones Bamwena talked about, just a few meters from the landfill.
How? How can that happen?
Kalina.
How can that happen? There's a landfill is there, and just next to it, you have a storage house and so on.
You said the landfill was still far.
It's in Wakiso.
It's in Wakiso, but you know.
The gentleman who was in KCC who was in charge of physical planning, who had failed the interview becoming a physical planner in Ruengo and Sembabule, but was made director of
Planning of the city.
Is this factual?
Yeah, it is.
Yes, that guy died with in an accident in Marara, Agaba.
It happened. It's factual. And now, by now, Oscar, as I go off the microphone, we'll be talking about the greater Kampala metropolitan in terms of planning. But Wakiso is doing its own thing. Mukono is doing its own thing. The capital city is doing its own thing. I see just total chaos. Total chaos. We need to think better, really.
Okay, there's on X, formerly Twitter, listeners, look out for Tony Mukangura. He's there. He wrote an article on how to reverse Uganda's collapsed urban planning. It's
Absolutely.
Like you're reflecting exactly what you're talking about.
Tony, we need to do it.
Tony Mukangura. It's at Tony Mukangura. Look him up. Very good article there. It's a good read, and that's what Abdu has been ranting about.
Just, it's quite annoying, really, because these are basics.
So, Irene Nakasita, or PRO, Red Cross, you came late to Mwalimu's class. Did you come late to Kiteezi as well?
No, we need to congratulate them, really. You've done a pretty good job. For us. We are happy. The public's really happy with Uganda Red Cross.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done. So what have you been doing, Uganda Red Cross?
Go late on ground.
You'll have to. I know you've raised your voice. Let's send you some Star Cafe chai and samosa.
Thank you, Oscar. We actually didn't get late on site. We were there in time, only that the planning, you've just been discussing planning of the place. Access was a little difficult. Accessing the people, accessing the houses, accessing the landfill was a little difficult because, one, how people are settled in the area. When you realize, I've been mentioning about this severally, that people had to sacrifice their space and houses to be demolished so that the excavators could actually also...
Irene, you're going to have to be louder.
Can you imagine that?
Oh, wow.
Yes. I beg your pardon, people had to...
People had to sacrifice their houses so that they could allow way for the responders to access the site.
Demolish.
Yeah, they had to demolish. So
because there was no access to get to the place.
Access to the place. Now, you've just been talking about so many small houses built in the area very close to the landfill, and that was the situation. So you could hear people crying, calling for help, but reaching them was difficult. And you can't also get this responder because they have to save a life to also risk theirs at the expense of pulling out somebody. So at some point it was quite difficult. But, the 14 were rescued, like you had in the statistics of the person who was introducing. The 14 were saved, but then the 35 bodies so far retrieved could not be saved. And I must painfully say that it may not be possible to get everyone who was buried. And after how many days? We are talking of about 10 to 13 days, around there. So, and you know the garbage is hot down there, it burns. I remember a certain lady who was picked out with no skin, yeah. So a body decomposes after some days. So it's true that we may painfully not be able to get out everyone because of where the body was, for example. If the body is somewhere where it's hard to send their people who are alive to pick, it may be hard to get them from there. So painfully, in emergency response, some places may have to be maybe declared mass graves because you cannot pick out all the bodies. And also being able...
The problem is they don't even know them. So
you don't even know them. That's what I was going to go to, that we don't even know them because leave alone the houses that were already there. So you know there was a pastor's house here. There were those, you called them Wananchi, Mtuawansi, those who wake up every day to Kawenja. Now, the Kawenja who wakes up to go and pick bottles or pick garbage or sort garbage and has no house in that area, you may not be able to account for them. So those ones. But of course, for us as humanitarian workers, the best we can do is say, we will try our best. And at best, what we can do is what we deliver to you. So where we are not able to, we should be able to tell you that here we will not be able to. But then let me go to camp management quickly, because now all the people who are saved alive and are not in hospital are living with us at the camp. I want to correct the figure.
Because they have nowhere to go?
Yeah, I'll share differently why they are there.
Okay.
Somebody read a figure of 300 something.
375. That's from
yes,
FDC.
so exactly. So with the verification exercise, I'll put the figure now to 293 people at the camp right now, because every other day we verify what the people that we have on ground, but also because of different.
So where have the others gone?
That's what I'm sharing right now. Because of the different circumstances, people develop coping mechanisms. Keeping them in the camp is not the best. If you have a relative, if you have means, yeah, some of those people were tenants there. Yeah, some can go back to the village, some can go and rent, those who have capacity. There's a lady who was telling me, yes, this happened, but I still have my job in town, so I run to town and work and come back and sleep here. So she was asking me to add her more relief. We have those who have relatives who would prefer that their people go and live with them than keeping them in the camp. I will be honest with you, being in the camp is not the best option. You're used to sleeping on a bed. For us, we are giving you a tarpaulin. And maybe when we get mattresses, we are giving you a mattress. But maybe you want your comfort. You can afford a bed. So you may want to go rent a mzigo of 100K if you can afford it, put there a bed and start life all again.
What about things like toilets, water?
Yes, those ones we have, but because it's an emergency phase, you will not get the first class toilet or water. So what we give are makeshift kind of arrangements. So you'll have a mobile toilet. You may not be comfortable with it, but that's the best we can give you. Right now, we are being accommodated at a church land or school land. We are at Kiteezi Primary School, their play field. So we cannot put there permanent structures. This is not our land. It's for the school, you know. So everything we are putting there is temporary. It may not be the best for the human being that you would wish to have, but there are provisions to help them really thrive and survive amidst the current situations. I want to take this opportunity to thank Ugandans who have been so generous. And please clap. I hope the studios people can hear that we are clapping. For you Ugandans who have sacrificed a lot and given towards the well-being of the people. Every other day, Oscar, we have trucks coming in. We have individuals walking, driving, people bringing. Someone can give you even a chigato that is very old and you're sure not going to give it to anyone, but they have moved the journey. They have walked maybe from Busega to come to Kiteezi to deliver something. Every other day we have sacks of clothes so that people do not go naked. Yeah, we have many children. We have lactating mothers. We have corporate companies that have come through to support. I thank MTN, they gave us 100 million. I thank Absa Bank, they gave us 100 million. And then there are others who are giving us items in kind, and all these things are making a contribution to the well-being of the people that we are housing. The water is there. KCCA brings a water bowser, so we have tanks there where people can draw the water. We have temporary bath shelters that we've put there. We have temporary mobile toilets that are there. Basically, it's an emergency phase. I cannot tell you it's the best, and so that's why I said those who can develop coping mechanisms quickly can actually go and find life elsewhere. But then maybe what is the plan? Yeah, because you may ask me what the plan is for the people. For us at best as humanitarian workers, we can offer help as long as the camp is still there and as long as government has not said stop. So what we can do, if we run out of support, we call upon you Ugandans to come and join us.
There's a Rotary response coming up, and I've seen some of our people in the younger ones, Rotary clubs, they are also gearing up.
Actually, many Rotary clubs have come through also as individual clubs to give, and I really want to appreciate the president of Kiteezi, the Rotary Club of Kiteezi herself was there on day 2. That was Sunday. She spent the whole day with us there trying to know what are the needs, and saying these are our people of Kiteezi. We need to come through to their rescue. So the Rotarians have also been doing a very great job. And
Irene, finally from you, what about the risk of disease?
It is high, but like I said, in an emergency setup, there are things that you can't avoid. Because it's been raining, like Mama Wanyota was talking about garbage and exposure to rain and everything. So if the garbage has water, where does it end up? Where does it go to? So if there are no gazetted water channels, that water lands into people's homes. For us, where we're staying at the camp, we've tried to manage the waterways and make sure we pave way for the water to go through so that it doesn't come into the camp, the tents, where the shelters themselves. But on day one, we had that problem. It rained heavily and water came straight to our tent and we didn't have anything to do. But the good thing, there were not many people. Day one, we had only 35 people. So we braved through that rain painfully. My CEO left that place that day at 3 a.m. in the morning. So I want to give kudos to him for leading by example. But now, we are trying to do what we call hygiene promotion, sensitizing these people, because we are living with people who have different backgrounds, and we need to help them know that if we don't manage disposal of certain things very well, we are bound to trouble and also getting exposed. So the only challenge, Oscar, now a few pneumonias among children because it's been cold, and also we don't know where some of these people slept for the first 2-3 days of the incident, because we didn't have them at the camp, but now they kept growing in number, but more children coming through. So when you look at our health tent and also the referrals we are making, they are around children who got exposed to, I think, colds and also getting pneumonia. Then, of course, some pregnant mothers, lactating mothers, those are special cases, people with disabilities. We are trying to make sure they are catered for better and in the best way that we can, so that they don't feel any gaps and spaces within their well-being.
Irene Nakasita, PRO Red Cross, and Ivan Bamoyana, researcher, you have enabled us to have a very saddening show. This
reality.
Yes, reality. Yeah. Not
but
good.
We still give hope, Oscar.
We have hope.
Because we want Ugandans to know that emergencies come, but if they are well managed, people really get comfort quickly. We pull through. And also, if the government can, for me, lessons learned. And I want to just mention this, that yes, somebody talked of budgets. There are some things we can do with budgets. There are those we cannot. There are those we can do even without budgets, like the proper planning and the prioritization. But when budgets are allocated, where do these funds go? So for me, the issues of disaster preparedness, response and management should be prioritized.
Also simple things like service delivery.
Exactly. And also holding ourselves accountable.
Yes.
Because if, for example, MTN has given me 100 million, I should go back to them and help them see where their money has gone.
Yeah.
So helping our leaders to be accountable and also to make sure our resources are channeled to the priorities of the people. For me, disaster preparedness, I would come off the mic and mention that people in Ministry of the budget, people who manage the budgets, assign funds to these people so that they can do their job better and in time.
We have assigned by law, the Public Finance Management Act, a portion of our budget specifically for disaster. A portion, a percentage.
A percentage.
Yes.
But most of the time, I think disasters first occur, and then we start running around for the budgets.
Even before the disaster, I want to recruit you, because if we've not had water for 4 days, so service delivery is also an important thing. We don't have a collapse or anything, but let's have good service. Ivan Bamoyana, you conclude on the technical side, and I'll get Abdul to conclude on the political side, i.e. what are they going to do? Can they put this as a big agenda item in their regional movements?
Actually, you actually need to know what goes on up country, other than this Kampala thing where people.
It's not on the topic. It wasn't on the topic. I just wanted to throw it in a little bit. Ivan,
I think for me, I want to drive to a bigger picture that we are missing. What we need to realize is that when a primary disaster occurs, secondary disasters follow. And that's one point we are not looking at. When you have to realize that garbage or waste that we are talking about we call it a landfill and not a dump site, because it is engineered. Part of that engineering means they put a lining down and to trap that leachate that comes from that waste. Now we are talking about 22 acres of waste that has spilled out. Now it has no lining down and it's spilled into a marshy valley. What you realize is that leachate is now coming through direct into that marshy valley.
Spell leachate.
Leachate is...
You need to use English sometimes, Ivan.
Okay, let me explain leachate first.
Okay.
Leachate is that black water that comes out of the waste. It's as if you're washing the waste. That liquid that comes out, that black liquid, it's quite toxic. It has heavy metals in it, like lead, and lots
So you're
of other
saying
impurities.
it is now entering
now seeping
22
directly.
acres,
Yes.
going down into the water base.
Now, here is the thing. Because it fell in the valley, upstream, it has caused flooding. The water can no longer flow. In between, there was a drainage that was taking out, that was channeling the stormwater and that leachate. Now, that drainage currently leads to Walufumbe stream. Walufumbe stream flows from Kiteezi via Kumbuzi into Chanja, into Kulambilo area. Now, we used to take rubbish to Kiteezi, and now they are giving us back something. So we are doing a cycle. This is where I see I see something coming up that we are not really being attentive to. Yes, so now this water can seep into underground water and surface water sources. So people in that area need, if you're not very hungry, mind what you're eating on the street. Mind, especially fruits in that area. Yes, it becomes a big issue. And then we also need to realize that, the Red Cross person has stated, the response issue. Response is not an event. It's a process. That's why you've had instances of, if you respond to it as if it's an event, take blankets. You realize the blankets are not what is suitable in that area or suitable to that particular process. I know there's a time the Prime Minister went to give off blankets, and I think they had to reject them and say, what is this that you've supplied to our people? And so I think in terms of response, even when the warnings come out, now what do you do when we give you warnings as researchers? Sometimes you have no budget, and KCCA may probably have had no budget. But what is wrong with warning the people that, like she has said, people have coping mechanisms? Worst case, warn them, like, this is going to come down. They will find ways of coping, and they will be able to deal with it. And so in this phase of now, what do we do? There are ways to manage rubbish or waste. You can incinerate it, you can make a landfill, you can composite, where you mix rubbish with something and then get a new material out of it. Then you can recycle it. But you're going to find that we still have separation issues right from the household. We are not separating our rubbish. And then we have a lot of kavera. If you go to Kiteezi, the biggest composition that is failing that place is that kavera. And so we have a duty to educate our people. You see how we have the national anthem even in nursery? The things that impact our country need to be integrated into our education. If a child grows up having a mindset towards waste management, it becomes much easier. Here, it's very normal for someone to be very educated, drive a Benz, lower that window and throw rubbish. Okay, and it's very normal for the uptown people to drive their car, very posh car, stop somewhere and throw out rubbish in the middle of the road. So what we are saying is we need to educate our people even on
Start from
matters
home.
like
Thank you,
start from
Ivan.
home and even reduce rubbish.
Okay, thank you. Abdu, what will the politicians do going forward?
You know, because you see, society is managed by politicians, you see. So at the end of the day, it's a big challenge, and I think this is what Lydia was talking about, accountability for the politicians who take these decisions, whether at Kampala Capital City Authority, whether at a national level, at the ministry level, because according to our constitution, Kampala is under central government management. And that's why it has two ministers. You know, this is the time when they should not be talking politics. It's the time when they be talking about issues that affect people who live and dwell in Kampala. It is. And let me tell you one thing about, they should not talk about money. Why? Because we give them money and they budget that money themselves. So they should get their priorities correct. They should get their priorities correct. Because when Parliament is appropriating money, we are looking at their work plan. And say, well, this is what we want, this is what we want, this is what we want. We may not give them all the money they need, but it's okay. You've been given 800 billion, so please budget within this. And they should get the priorities correct.
Okay. We change subjects. We go to FDC. Mr. Kaija, Harold Kaija, is Interim Secretary General of FDC. I will also add for my own Katonga. So when Harold Kaija says that these people appointed and people that are not qualified, and you point at the other people who are not qualified, for us we are looking at you, Katonga, and we are looking at the qualifications of Katonga people breaking away. Are you cognizant that maybe FDC is not looking good at the moment? Looking at your recent proposals of dissolving the party, starting another party, or maybe joining another party?
Thank you, Oscar. I would agree that the resolutions we're talking about are meant to fix the very problem you are talking about. Of saying if it does not look good. If an organization does not look good, the best way is to wind it up. Yes. The best, because the framers of the constitution of the FDC...
You're going with the mantra of, if a horse is dead, it is dead.
Yeah. The framers of the FDC constitution, which Honorable Katuntu is very aware of, they put an article.
I'm not aware of. I'm one of them.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the
who wrote it.
One of the people who wrote it.
Yes.
Where there would be a point where that if the party does not serve the purpose for which it was formed, they put an Article 36
that says
it can be wound up, and they even put up processes in which it can be wound up, and that is the article. There is a legal word they use, I've forgotten, that you come and tap at it and say, I think the time is now to park the FDC. The FDC was a party that was created to usher in a democratic change in this country. It was created to carry the aspirations of the people of Uganda, especially those who are in captivity, those who are marginalized, to see to it we put a country where their dreams and aspirations are achieved. But today, when you look at the FDC as it is, you do not see any line of hope. You see some people who have arrived, who actually believe it is okay, who believe the status quo does not affect any kind of situation the common man or the ordinary person is facing. In the recent past, I have not heard a statement from Najana Nkumbi that speaks to the people of Uganda. Today, the person at the helm of Najana Nkumbi has become another version of an English Tamale Mirundi, with the base card missiles, and that is whenever you would check the papers, what comes from Najana Nkumbi would just be able to attack any other person.
Has he described me as well? He has been describing well the leaders.
Yes, yeah. I think one of the reasons he's a little reserved about describing me, because I know him pretty well.
Others don't know him.
No, there's when you get, we have shared a bed. We have shared a bed. I've been with him. I know how he thinks. I know how he does things. He has spoken to me his mind.
Who
but
is
you know,
this one? The president of
the president of
Nigeria?
Mr. Engineer Patrick Amriat. So, about 2 years ago, on the run-up to the campaign of 2011, Honorable Ekanya had some financial challenges and then ran to Mr. Museveni to go and fix his financial challenges. Reaching there, they found themselves discussing the FDC. And the big man said, I have something I can offer you.
Mr. Kanya, this is national radio.
Yes.
Mr. Kaija, this is national radio.
Yes.
So are you stating facts that can be...
You brought somebody
verify?
who is not an outsider, who is an insider, who knows how things work.
Right.
So on reaching there, he was asked for the budget of the FDC, the campaign of the FDC, which he went and submitted.
Maybe that's not such a bad thing.
So should we say the FDC is a sparring partner of Mr. Museveni? Because in boxing,
hasn't it happened?
Yeah, in boxing, if you're preparing to have a boxing match, they get you a sparring partner to prepare you so that you're good enough to face the fight. The FDC that I know is supposed to be the opponent of the NRM in a boxing ring, not the partner. So eventually, when they got the money was not given to Ekanya, it was given somebody else. Ekanya learned about the money after some time. So when he was given peanuts, he went to Dr. Vesige and said, you know what? Money. There was money, I was called, I had gone for my problems, then I learned there was money that they would support some people who are preparing for elections. And that is how we are able to learn about the money. That problem, we tried to fix it for about 2-3 years until last year, when the colleagues started doing underhand methods to make sure whoever talks about them is out of the institution or the structures of the FDC. The whole of last year, no FDC card was sold. When you are running up to the structure elections, Honorable Kadu will tell you, for anybody to contest for position in the FDC, you must have a card and even to vote. So if your people do not have a current annual card, they can't vote you or they cannot even contest. So we went to NEC and said, how can this be? How can we put things straight? Eventually, for 2 months, the party president refused to call NEC. In every morning, we have a WhatsApp group. Honorable Salam Musumba would write, when is NEC? The party president will never respond. Every morning, religiously, every morning, good morning, colleagues, when is NEC? So one day, the Secretary for People with Disability.
Just stop here for a second. We'll remind you, one day the Secretary for Disability, Mr. Katana, don't smile a lot because even your party, many things have come and disrupted you.
Can I even smile? Because, you know, where I come from, in the olden days, when domestic violence was common practice, wisdom dictated that when you come across a stick that has been used to beat your co-wife, you throw it very far. So the problems of FDC or any other
opposition party,
yes, right, are problems that concern us.
Still around.
Welcome back from the break. The most memorable note that came from the break was about who has the stick. So, Harold, yes, Kaiser, Interim Secretary General, 2 minutes to conclude that narrative.
So, I told them that issue became a serious issue in the party. Whoever was challenging what was happening, even how the methods of work, the party eventually literally packed. No NEC, no working committee. The president had to respond. Now, I was telling you, the Secretary for PWD said, now, if the party president cannot invite NEC, for me, let me invite NEC members. We go to headquarters and have a chat. Reaching there, the guys we call Gun the Chiefs, we are all over. He was told, since we're PWD, we are not going to do anything to you, but tell your colleagues don't appear. So he called us, guys, if you want your life, don't come to Niger.
Was that the time you were asked to write your wills?
No, actually that was after when. Yes, so now eventually we started to mobilize, and they use all their forces. So how they were purging people, and then we said no. I think we are good. We are better than this. We had never seen the military occupy Najanankum. The military has always been our opponent. But now you would see guns all over, and police was taking a side in the FDC. So we decided to go and run around, make consultation. We are supposed to have a delegates conference, which they went and asked Mr. Mukalazi, who was the vice chairperson, yet the constitution of the FDC only allows the chairman to call the delegates conference, decide the date and the venue. When they saw the chairman was not agree with what was happening, they invited the EC boss. So we challenged them. How can an EC boss call a delegates conference? Now a few weeks, no, actually, when the matter went to court, they brought a backdated invitation of delegates conference signed by Mr. Mukalazi Kibuka, who was the vice chairperson, and they had forgotten the date they put on. The guy was supposed to face doctors in a surgery in Nairobi. Then he said, 28th July, you were in hospital in Nairobi. How did you sign? Secretary General said, you don't think I have money? I can always fly to Nairobi. Ask him, saying, a man who is fighting for his life to go and sign. Then who delegated him? Then eventually, you saw those battles where eventually were able to manipulate court and have their way. And then eventually, we had a delegates conference of 19 September, which suspended them, that gave us the interim leadership, gave us the responsibility of going down to put structures, so which we have done like the whole of this country. Then,
but in conclusion, Harold, but after putting all those structures,
yes,
but then now you want to close.
Yes, no, we no. Then the next National Council we met, we said, fine, guys, we had a legitimate delegates conference. These guys went ahead and had a meeting which they called a delegates conference, chaired by one Mukalazi Kibuka, who is no chairman. But Justice Sekana was very okay with them, saying what we are doing was in bad faith. So they gave us about 4 proposals to go and consult about around the country, which we've been doing. One, to see to it that if we can still pursue the court case up to the end. We saw the cases of DP and UPC. UPC Warubiri reached up to the Supreme Court and got the verdict on their side, but the military could not allow them to access Uganda House. We saw what was, then we said, now this is an option that cannot lead us anywhere. Then they said, could we go and reconcile with them? Said, what do we reconcile? This one says Museveni is okay to work with. Actually, I saw the Secretary General one time on TV saying, if those guys have a problem with Museveni, it is their business. For us, we have no problem with Museveni. For us, we do. Then that was an issue. Others said, should we join another party? And there was another proposal to form a political party. So went and consulted on those 5 proposals. On Monday this week, we had a delegates conference where unanimously the members who were in the delegates conference proposed that we must, first of all, one member said and proposed that we wind up the FDC because they said the FDC has our values, has our history. Leaving it with the colleagues who do not know the sacrifices we went through to have that party would be suicidal. Then 2, they said, we go and form another political party. 3, they gave us another mandate, we who have been in the interim, to prepare a transitional period to transit from this FDC to our next destination. And that's where we are now. The whole of this week we've been preparing. On Monday, the day after tomorrow, our team will be going to the EC to go and reserve the name and start preparing for the resolution number 2 of forming another platform.
Benjamin Katana, is there an old man in a house of the state smiling at all these events?
Yeah, certainly. I think the starting point is that political parties...
Remember the stick.
Yes. that political parties are basically... When people join political parties, it's because they have shared aspirations. Now, when the aspirations are no longer uniform, I think it is not improper for people to part ways.
It is not improper.
It is not improper.
So it is proper for people to part ways.
If they feel that they no longer have shared aspirations with the other group that sits in Najana and Kumbi. And I think my brother Kaija has painted a picture of what has transpired that has led FDC to where it is now. And I think, in my opinion, is that Uganda is largely under a military dictatorship that must disguise as a democracy to tick some boxes in terms of being able to relate with other countries and the benefits that flow from that. And the way military dictatorships operate is that they must dismantle all centers of power around which citizens coalesce. And one of such centers of power is political parties. You remember that when the NRA captured power, they first of all abolished political parties. And because of pressures from different angles, then they were forced to now say we have opened the window. We can have a multi-party democracy where people are able to mobilize and coalesce around political parties. And so, by character, the old man that you are talking about, Museveni, and the NRA, now that has become NRM somehow, they are not people that want to have political parties that are functional, much as circumstances have forced them to have a semblance of political parties that are functional. So one of the ways through which these political parties must be dismantled is through infiltration. And this infiltration will lead to internal strife. Now, this internal strife is what we are seeing in FDC that has led them to where they are now. And I think it is good for both sides. Instead of staying together and fighting every day, let the Amriat group, if they feel that these ones are no longer adding value, work and mobilize. If Kaija and his colleagues at Katonga feel that the other people were contaminating the mission, let them have space where they can mobilize and build momentum towards realization of the mission. Of course, in the internal management of parties, away even now from the external forces that we are talking about, I think many times, and I think this is largely about the politics of the day, that even most of us Ugandans generally, we have not yet become democrats at heart. So even in the management of political parties, internal political management of political parties, there are aspects that also breed that internal strife in parties, because some people want to run them as personal, yet these are public entities, and so you end up with conflicts of this nature. And I believe that, especially for us who are in the opposition, that we should And I think it's General Mut who always says that you cannot give what you don't have. We should aspire to build organizations that are well streamlined, that adhere to the constitutionalism, but even the constitutions of their particular political formations, and have mechanisms of resolving these conflicts.
Yeah.
But they are I'm not saying that in resolution of these conflicts they should compromise on principles.
I'm giving you an extra minute just now, because now you also have your own Dr. Wanika. Will he also request to start another party?
And that's the point I'm making, that political parties must be able to resolve these, find means of resolving amicably conflicts, but without compromising on the principles, the fundamental principles that guide political parties. So I believe that the individual that you have mentioned or any other, if they have any grievances that are not largely personal, they should raise them within the party structures and have them resolved amicably before they start running around and turning what would be small misunderstandings into bigger conflicts that will blow up parties. Because at the end of the day, you may, if you have aspirations really that you hold dear, they should be more important than your personal comfort.
Okay.
In the political organization.
There's Frederick Karamaji on X, formerly Twitter, says parties should avoid the word democratic in their names because they end up Democrat Party, Forum for Democrat Change, Social Democrat Party.
They should become dictatorial and use the word so that they become democratic.
Rwanda. Abdu, founder of FDC Party. All these happenings, surely there's an old man smiling at all this. So
as an ex.
Instead of opposition parties fighting him, they are fighting each other.
I had His Royal Highness the Kabaka of Uganda, when he came back after being indisposed for some time, cite a Luganda proverb. I don't know whether I got it correct. Ejiranga netonya, eriokanga netonya, nolava. And that's what is happening. And I can't cite it.
Kind of what Irene Nakasita has been saying about people coming in to help.
You see, when we came together, and this is what Katana is talking about, we had what we thought were shared values, aspirations, and norms. And eventually, some of us came I came from Uganda People's Congress. My friends came from DP. Others came from NRM. Others even had no parties, and we formed this thing called Forum for Democratic Change. So many things happened. Eventually, we realized that we had so many contradictions after a very long time. I'm sure the country realizes that in our first 7 years, we were a solid group. And we had, I thought, realign the political opposition in this country, and we are moving smoothly that many people thought would be an alternative to the NRM. Like when you look, for example, at the US, after some time people say, well, the Democrats have done this, let us try the Republicans. We thought we had done that. Then all of a sudden the contradictions became too much, and we reached a position where we thought, some of us thought we were in a wrong company. Really wrong company. That's why we sometimes go back to Eringa, Jirane Tonya Nola, something like that. Because the sort of talk I hear my brother Kaija, saying now, I mean, it's not new. That's the very thing you were choosing us. That's and they were together with Amuriat, and there is no filth and garbage which these guys didn't throw at us. Nothing. Every kitchen sink was thrown at us. Why? We had a difference of opinion on how that party should be run. We had a difference of, and the beauty about us, we put our difference on table. What you are talking about? We never worked behind. Instead, they were working behind. We don't want to go into that because we don't want to sound bitter. Later on, we realized when we were wrong company, we left. We walked away. We were not happy, but we are not bitter. Because you see, when for us, because this is not the first splinter group, when we walked away, we didn't return that filth, we didn't return that garbage, we didn't return that kitchen sink. We need the garbage and so on. The others who feel comfortable about it. For us, we said, okay, I think we are in the wrong company. We reached what we lawyers call irretrievable breakdown. We had reached it and walked away. And we wish them well. Unfortunately, we knew it would come. And it actually, it even came later. We thought it would come soon and so on. Because, Kaija, you were acting in bad faith. Your group was acting in bad faith when it was together. And that's how we left. And you had to have these fights. So, one, this is my view. I can say more and more, but I don't want to do that. Because I have written a book, and eventually when it comes out, it has facts and so on. For example, I'll tell you where TVO came from and who was running it. TVO, I'm sure Kaija knows it. I'll tell you where it came from. I'll tell you what it was, its mission. All those things, they are now being written down and so on. You see, Kaija, if you can't politically really walk away and your own thing, what you are doing is about bitterness. You sound bitter. You think if it can't be you, you must break this thing. For us, what we put in to have FDC, I'll give you an example. I have tens of millions of my own money, tens of millions, which I contributed towards the purchase of that headquarters. My own money, tens of millions. And many of us did, real money, which we would have used on our families and so on. But we thought we are building a home, we are building a party, and many years people say, yeah, these guys were. But we said, okay, we leave it to them. Let us go and find a way of making our own contribution. So why, Oscar, today there is no way you'll get Mr. Kaija and Amuriat together that they can reconcile. They have reached that position.
Of not being able to sit at the same table.
They can never, because one, they all mistrust each other for different reasons. Yesterday, they were very close friends. Mr. Kaija tells you they even sleep in the same bed. And I want people to take it really that he didn't mean the other thing. So that is how hard times. Yeah, yes. That is how close they were. And now that they have fallen apart and so on, when I hear Honorable saying, "Oh, you're Dikula," is it Dikula? Blah blah. Then these ones also returning fire. Tamale Mirundi. What? I said, what is this all going on? You see. And I don't want you to go so much into legalese. When we came together as FDC, we are not talking about legalese. We are talking about a political struggle, a political process, and political brotherhood. Now, that brotherhood has irretrievably broken down. Please move on. Okay. Forget about FDC. FDC is gone. Like indeed, we left it for you. And we left it for you, it is gone. Leave it for those who are there. And if you think they are all that bad, they will continue fighting again.
Okay, thank you, Abdul.
Like we left you and you fought.
Lydia, the owner of the stick.
She's a victim of the stick.
She's a victim of a stick.
So, on the stick, I would like to inform those who are just experiencing the first strokes that welcome. Because you have a choice to run away, or if you come, maybe your strokes will be lighter. But now that Kaija is here, Katutu talked about his biggest contribution to FDC and gave an example of the financial contribution to the party headquarters in Najana and Nkumbi. But I think where I sit, I think one of the biggest contributions people leave the party that you can never get back. From here you can make another billion shillings of money. But what you can never bring back is your energy, your usefulness. Those years are gone and they're gone. I saw you, the energy,
of my politics.
the prime of, you can never be 40, 30 with the proper eyes of deep research, looking at what the other political parties in the other countries have done, how they've come out of it, traveling to see what other countries and parties have formed, that you can never get back.
Each and every branch was formed by us.
So those are some of the things. And if people like you can let go of that, because sometimes we hold on to, you talked about marriages. For those of us, when you marry, you even change the name. I'm now Mutende. I was not born a Mutende, but the name you change your name. You at least I added on.
I was asking us. Your name in the menu also.
Hey, you, Oscar. Like now, there is. I am a lawyer. I'm a professional educationist. But people know me as NRM. So I'm like if you see me, they say that NRM woman. So I cannot leave NRM despite all the challenges. That's my brand in the politics of our country. So Kaija,
your sympathy is hurt.
If you want to leave FDC, please leave. Do not kill the history of. If you are worth it, it will die on its own. Why must you kill it? You leave it. If it grows, let it grows. If it dies, let it die on its own. I've heard you people saying you first of all want to kill FDC or did you just say it or something like that, then you form a new one. And where I sit, I'm like, don't do that, because it does not bring out the leadership that we want. We are not here to kill. We are here to build. You never know. The one you've left tomorrow, you will come back. It's like when you're in a marriage again. Oscar, let me finish this. If you're in a marriage and the marriage has gone bad, you don't kill where you are coming from. You've invested so much for you. Just move on.
You even have children.
You might have even children in this, because you might look back one day.
Thank you, Lydia.
And you've made up. Never say never. So that's what I want to say. I feel your pain. I feel the emotions. I feel the anger. Those guys really, they have money, because I feel them as well where I come from. But don't fight.
They have money.
Yeah. In this country, don't say you are poor. There are people that really have money, and it's not just money.
So
they have what you call disposable income.
Yeah.
But please,
in
the sake of our country's politics, do not talk about killing another party. Just move on. That's my humble request to you.
The Harold Kaija, let me allow you one sentence before we have Ivan Vamwena and Irene Nakasita to close.
Thank you so much.
And the question is directly, what do you take from this discussion in less than a minute?
No, I take it that colleagues feel we shouldn't dissolve the FDC.
Just go in peace.
The FDC, we should just move on. But so you see, the shares, a fellow shareholder is here, the shares, what we put in, we feel the organization no longer fits the bill.
No. As we said, what do you take from this discussion? So maybe you will go back to party and discuss.
No, I have picked the ideas to let it go and move on. I'll go to my ranks and tell them colleagues are saying we move on and just leave it to die on its own.
Thank you so much, Harold Kaija. And then I had, I'll just say his first name, Dr. John. He says we manage by crisis, even if predict nothing is likely to happen. who doesn't know that the next tragedy is going to involve borders? Either there will be a big accident, whatever, and then that will be sparked off.
There was one where 5 people died somewhere in Zimbabwe.
You see? So, Ivan Bamuyana, I hope you've enjoyed Star Cafe Goodies. What's your conclusion on the topic we've had today?
Here is the thing. There's a saying that if a chameleon is to survive a fire, it must forget the walking style of its ancestors. We've done things.
If a chameleon is
yes,
it must change its swagger of walking.
it must forget the walking style of its ancestors
and hurry up.
Yes, and run. Yes, I mean chameleon, the animal.
A disclaimer. Quickly,
yes.
Ivan.
Yeah. So
Not the vocal.
what I cause our government to move towards is to forget being slow on response, but to also avoid procrastinating on response. And like I said earlier, response is not an event, it's a process. Let's have proper structures for response. I am surprised Red Cross when they say the planning affects their response when they can't move in. So I propose that the ministries that are in charge, we find some form of synergy when we have integrated systems, like Mr. Katutu said, Mukono should work together with Kampala. Integrated systems push areas to far greater horizons than silos.
Then Irene Nakasita.
Mukono said, don't bring your rubbish.
Mukono said what? Pardon?
Don't bring your rubbish here. Wakiso don't. But 40% of that people actually live in Kampala.
They rubbish Kampala.
But they're saying don't bring it.
Irene Nakasita, fine.
For me, I want to request Ugandans because
I should ask you, will you be at the cancer run tomorrow, Red Cross?
Yes, we will.
Because the Rotary Cancer Run is tomorrow, Sunday, at the Kolo airstrip, so we are expecting to see you there.
Saving lives all
Saving
the time.
lives, yes.
So for you to reach to us, because I know people have emergencies anytime, we have a toll-free number that I would like to read out to the public.
Please do.
It is 0800 211 088. It's a 24-hour number and it operates anytime. 0800 211 088. And we are also setting up a humanitarian fund, so that whoever has anything to contribute to preparedness, to response, we will be sharing the account number and also the way you can be part of our humanitarian efforts to be able to save lives. And this is part of preparedness, so that we don't really rush to come to respond when it's too late, but we would wish that we invest in preparedness more and save more lives.
Thank you. Philip tells you, Abdu, that please insist that there be a national tribute to these victims of bad governance. Will you take up on that one? It's worth thinking about.
Maybe.
Thank you so much. Listeners of the Capital Gang, thank you, our guests. Ivan Bamuyana, researcher at Makerere University. Thank you so much. Thank you, Irene Nakasita, the PRO of Red Cross. Mr. Harold Kaija, we hope you've taken advice from a table. Honorable Abdu Katuntu, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, Benjamin Katana, thank you so much. Thank you, Star Cafe. I am Oscar Semoyam Soke, and I shall see you next week.